Hello and welcome back to the Prepper Post News, courtesy of Freedom Prepper. I am Perrin Lovett, your host, on Wednesday, April 7th, 2021. Hello to everybody listening and watching everywhere. Got a great show for you today. A few great house announcements that I'll get to in a little bit. Could not find our little buddy, the lizard, at the conclusion of yesterday's taping. He had vacated, so maybe he'll be back. He appears to like hanging out right here, so maybe you guys can see him if he returns from wherever lizards go. One place they don't want to go is Bradenton, Florida, Manatee County, which is just south of is the southern part of the Tampa Bay metro area. In the news over the weekend and this week with the pond full of apparently hundreds of millions of gallons of water contaminated with some sort of radioactive material left over from the mining of phosphates or fertilizer or something. I didn't really look too deeply into it, but it's another great marker of industrial civilization. We extract this stuff. Nobody does a cleanup. They just build a cheap earthen dam and hope for the best. And of course, it's a very flat area, so the water is not very deep, but it's a large pond. There's a lot of water in it, and the pond started leaking. So they had to declare a state of emergency and evacuate thousands and thousands of people, because if this stuff flows out, it's just going to be not only a cleanup nightmare on the ground, but you've got to think about drinking water and things like that. Pay attention to stories like this, because even if they don't make the news, in a country this big, something like this is happening. I hope none of you are affected. I know a lot of people in Tampa, but they're generally north of this calamity. If this isn't happening to you, just know that there's something wherever you are that's close enough to at least make you think about the future. So it pays to know your area, know what's in your area, what could go wrong with what's in your area, and then to prepare accordingly, especially for things like this that are known hazards waiting to happen. Hopefully they'll get that all fixed up, but I don't know what you do with that much water other than just let it sit there. Much like justice in America is just sitting there, falling apart, degrading. The shelf life, the radioactive half-life on Liberty is a lot shorter than radioactive waste. We have the show trial up in Minnesota of Derek Chauvin just rolling on. You can keep track of that live in the news. I saw this interesting report from the mainstream Microsoft news source. I want to call them the state persecutors. The prosecutors introduced the autopsy, the one and only autopsy performed by the state medical examiner on George Floyd. And it says what it says. I've linked to it before. I've read it. Many of you have read it. And it basically says overdose, narcotics, and poor vascular health. Really bad vascular health. No damage to the neck, no damage to the soft tissue in the throat. So they had their own state's expert with the only scientific record of what happened to Mr. Floyd. They introduced it, and then they immediately started to crawfish and lawyer and backpedal. Whereas this talks about fentanyl and a bunch of other drugs, and years worth of hard living on the heart and the arteries. They came back and said, well, it says that, but that's probably not what killed him. Obviously, the life was squeezed out of him minute by minute because of the knee on the neck, even though there's no evidence of any damage to the neck. And of course, he, as the video made clear, if you're saying I can't breathe, among many other things, if you're talking, you're breathing. So this alone, in a former sane America, would have ended the trial early. But interesting times we live in. A lot of criminal activity. You may recall last summer, after one after the another of these hoax stories, divisive hoax stories, were wedged into the news cycle to kind of break up the corona story. We got calls all over the country: defund the police, stop enforcing the law, stop stop arresting people who commit crimes. And the police, fearful of being drug into show trials, by and large backed off in Minneapolis, in Portland, Atlanta, all over the country. And oddly enough, the criminals responded with a huge spike in crimes, all kind of violent crimes. Murder rate is soaring, and it's continuing into this year. It's almost like cause and effect. I suppose our betters would tell us that there are no lessons to learn here, but take a look at that. I've got a link, all the links at freedomprepper.com. One of the violent crimes that is gaining steam, it's been an ongoing trend for years. A few years ago, George Floyd himself participated in one of these. It's the trend of the violent home invasion. And some of you may have heard about Glenn Greenwald's experience down in Brazil. I've got a link to his website where he recounts what happened to him, but he's not a self-centered person. He talks about it in the greater context. He gives an example of a Bay Area, I think Oakland, family who had the exact same thing happen to them. Both cases, armed thugs, burst into the house, guns drawn, tied up everybody, beat people, threatened people, ransacked the house, and then left. And everybody got off lucky because everybody lived. In many cases, that's not the case. Glenn, and Oakland, that's right there in a big metro area. Glenn and his husband and family are hiding out from the various calamities outside of Rio, which is a large city, much like the Bay Area. And but he's 90, I think he's either 90 minutes or 90 miles outside of town on a farm. And yet and still, the thugs still found him. And so this gives, people have been talking about since the 70s, when it hits the fan, the hordes are coming out looking and looting. And so it can happen in America, in Brazil, it can happen anywhere. And by and large, you're on your own. So just as you would with radioactive wastewater, prepare now. And know that you really are on your own. We're all on our own. The USSA is being invaded. The largest invasion in human history is ongoing. It started 50-something years ago, and it just keeps picking up steam, and the politicians do absolutely nothing. It's worse than open warfare because it doesn't look like warfare. Nobody gets really excited. But in the end, the result is the same. A people are conquered by an incoming people. The USSA military is finally stepping up to do something. They have opened up a third USSA military base to house the invaders. So thank you. No A-10 runs on the caravans coming in. No sentries, no snipers. None of that. Just hugs and welfare checks, and we'll get everybody integrated so as fast as possible into the system so that they can finish off what's left of the nation. Thank you for your service, guys. You're doing a heck of a job. Thank you to President Biden and to his predecessor, President Trump, who I wrote to several times about this issue, and he responded by giving a babbling speech about his accomplishments in Texas, all of which have been undone now. So great job, everybody. We got crime and invasion, terrorism all over the place, and we're on our own. The FBI is doing absolutely nothing about it. Local police do nothing about it. State police do nothing about it, except in a few places. But rest assured now, the FBI is on the case. They're on your case. We're getting it, like it or not, they're coming up with some kind of vaccine passport. And it's just a rumor right now, the kind of rumor that is already true by the time you hear about it. The FBI is stepping in to investigate that. Well, actually, they're stepping in to investigate people who might fake the certificate or the passport. And I've heard many rumors about that, people joking and people not joking. because until there's standardization, what's to stop you from making up your own card that said, yeah, I'm vaccinated? Well, the FBI is looking for you. They're going to hunt you down, even as they admit that, you may not be breaking a law, unlike all the criminals and the invaders and the terrorists, but they're gonna spend their resources wisely, stopping you. They give you a passport to the gulag, which you deserve, of course, here in the Corona apocalypse, the remains of America. And that's the byline out of a story by Dr. Roberts, where he and Mike Whitney, very smart men, line up the known and the suspected facts behind what very well may be the largest crime against humanity in human history. I've got a link. Check that out. C as in cookie, good enough for me. C as in Corona, World War C, with the war crimes. All possible. We don't know. It's also possible that we're going into another ice age. These things happen very slowly. It's not, it doesn't start snowing, early in one year and then doesn't let up the next. I've got a story linked up here with all this nonsense. The usual suspects always pushing communism and other nefarious schemes. They try any and every tactic to scare you, like climate. And, in the 70s, they were talking about the coming ice age. Then it was global warming. Now the climate is just bouncing around, and we don't have enough chalk to spray in the sky to stop it. The only solution is to surrender all your liberties, move out of your house, and, pay more taxes on jobs that you don't have because all the factories and the stores and everything else shut down, and there are no cars. Absolute insanity. None of it's true. I've got a graph here, a very long-term graph that starts at the end of the last ice age and makes its way to the present, and it just goes up and down, but it's slowly going back down. The overall temperatures are sliding. It has to do with the grand solar minimum and just the natural cycle of the weather. And it's generally getting cooler. And, are we going to live to see, glaciers spreading all over the northern hemisphere? Probably not. But if they do, there's nothing we can do to stop that. Communism's not the answer. Not that the facts matter. Unless you're retiring soon. Congratulations, baby boomers. You got it all. You got your Beatles and your vaccination and all your grandkids' money. Take it and run to one of the best retirement locations on earth, none of which are in the United States. Take a look. Market Watch has a top 10 for places to escape to outside the USSA with good reason. Number 10 is Vietnam. You boomers, the ones that went to the war in Vietnam, did you ever think that you'd be going back there to hoard and spend the last of your grandkids' inheritance before you take your collective generational plague and exit? Who knows? And will this United States even be a country much longer? The consensus answer now is no, and everybody's starting to see it. Dr. Roberts has another great column looking at the total degeneration, both in terms of American identity, the culture that went with that identity, and the politics that naturally flows out of that. He says the U.S. politically has generated into a backwoods third world country where an incoming regime could arrest or even execute a previous administrator, like a president. Not quite there yet, but we're certainly sliding that way. And that's just the political angle. He gets into the other stuff. Culturally, it's much worse. It's practically over, and it deserves to be for many reasons, like the one I'm going to talk about in the feature topic. But first, hello, welcome back to the YouTube crowd. As far as I can tell, the videos have stuck this week. We have not offended our tech overlords. I sincerely hope I do soon. And when I do, we'll keep playing this dance until they kick us off completely. All the more reason why you should spread the message as far and wide as you possibly can. And whatever you do, come over and join freedompreppercommunity.com. Yeah, like the video. Please leave a comment. I've seen many of the comments. It's great to be back. It feels good. But, social media, I skipped over some more social media horror stories. Freedom Prepper has 60, 70, 80,000 people on Facebook, 30,000 on Pinterest, I think 10 or 20,000 on Twitter, a good 1,000 or so on the YouTube, and not that many yet on our own self-controlled, self-promoted social media. So come on over and join the community. It's the last place where they'll come to cancel us, because if they try to come in, we'll kick them out. Anyway, let's get into the daily feature here. Little lizard check. Don't see one. I got a little plastic lizard I might bring in if I can find it. You know, because I always like to keep a plastic lizard. It would go well with my other collection of stuff. In this country, what's left of it, we have a collection of some of the most diabolical, insane, evil ever seen since the days of Sodom and Gomorrah. And if this country falls apart, as it is, it deserves to. I mean, it's just it's not you, it's not me, it's not the people we know. We're the outliers. We are the last vestige of the decent Americans living in the fallen USSA. The rest of them, dear God, it's sheer wickedness, and it's stupidity coupled with mental illness and dishonesty and a hatred of anything good, true, and beautiful, like children. I saw this story, and I almost don't believe it, except I've learned to suspend my disbelief. You know, like going into an old-fashioned movie about a fantasy, you had to, tell yourself, this isn't real. Well, this stuff is worse, and it is real. Got a story about Planned Parenthood, originally called the Abortion League of America, opened up, set in motion with the assistance of literal German Nazi scientists. I call it Rehash Nazi Eugenics Incorporated. These are the people who, I had the number here. How many babies have they killed just this year? At the time, I got a link to the abortion tracker website, which uses pretty good and scientific metrics. They have an explanation of how they arrive at these numbers. Uses these to track abortions in America and worldwide. And so far this year, when I checked it, Planned Parenthood has murdered over 97,000 babies in the USSA alone. And the grand total with all of these women's health providers is about 250,000 in the U.S. They also give the international stats. That is already in the millions, or maybe even the tens of millions. These people are sick. They're evil. They are literal devil worshippers, vampires, and they're never satisfied. They're never satisfied. If they can't kill the child, then they want to ruin the child. They literally hate children and want to destroy them, because little children are about as close to angelically perfect as you can get as a human being. So why not mar them from the start? That's what they're doing. Let me just read you a little of this. The world's leading clinic for abortion coercion is entering a new market, the transgender business. It all goes together. Planned Parenthood wants to reach out to young people and convince them to take synthetic hormones to alter their appearance and physiology. Planned Parenthood wants to prey on the adolescent mind and convince young boys and girls to alter their hormonal expression and undergo surgical operations to make them neutered and infertile. Planned Parenthood now preys on adolescents, turning them against their biology and chemically castrating them, which is what they were talking about. It's all Margaret Sanger talked about back in the 20s and 30s. Her and who was the Nazi? One of the Ernst Rudin? I forget what his outcome of Nuremberg and World War II was, but he helped get the program going. Rehash Nazi Eugenics Incorporated. Planned Parenthood. It's also exploiting childhood psychology and sexually harassing young people in a way that is reminiscent of pedophilia. They're grooming. They're reaching out. They're grooming. They're preying on the most vulnerable. As the predatory institution damages the health of young people, they are creating customers for life for all of their other satanic services. It won't be long before Planned Parenthood directly engages in genital mutilation surgeries. Now, I didn't, did I fact check this? No, I don't have to. These people make a living with your tax dollars murdering children. They lose any benefit of the doubt whatsoever. I want to have the wider platform, so I'm not going to give you my overt opinion. I'm not going to tell you what I would rather do to these people, exactly what they deserve. You know what that is, and it's a shame we don't have more millstones lying around, because that's what it's going to take. A sane and civilized people just would not put up with this. Let me switch over to the clock and just take another real-time view of what we have. Numberofabortions.com. Let's see. Yep, way up over 97,000. You're going to look at my my picture screen capture. It's worse. And they even give this in real time. Their stats are that close. They can estimate how many are killed in real time. It's going up. You can watch this. The number of abortions today, 1,200 plus and counting. Let's see. We have the number worldwide since I clicked on this. There have been 43 since I clicked on this a second ago. 10 million worldwide. All these idiots, the next great hoax, the aliens, intelligent aliens are going to come here and invade us or help us. No intelligent species would want anything to do with a bunch of savages that murder their own children. That's a hallmark of insanity and pure evil. And it's another reason why we need to go ahead and break this thing up. There are going to be pockets, enclaves, states, large and small, where this is allowed. And I pray that in the area that I fall into, that it's not. And hopefully we can make a difference, as we try to do every day here. It's good to be back, I guess, on YouTube. Good to be back with you, wherever you are, especially to those of you listening to the podcast. In the not too distant future, I hope we can turn this into a longer frame show, video and audio, hours worth, with a call-in section. So stay tuned for that. And I will see you guys back. Hope you have a great hump day. I guess if you're down in Augusta, it's Par 3 Wednesday, if that's even still a thing. Hard to tell anymore, but we'll cover what comes up next. Have a great day.